Same chapter, the Lambda Zeta chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
All right.
And is all of it. And but I'd known of her before I ever formally met her. To me, she was the carefree black girl before it was ever coined that. Just being true to herself through writing, poetry, spoken word. She is a mother of the Miller boys, Trey and Cole Elijah. And she is the bride of Scott of 8 years.
Ooh.
Almost 9 years in April. May, I was close. Yay, almost 9 years. Okay.
Ooh, yes. Right.
She has written 2 books, Smeared Eyeliner and Faded Lipstick, and also On the Heels of My Father, Removing the Weight While Walking in Purpose. She also blogs on her website, removethemakeup.com, where she talks about pressing on, motherhood, loss, and all that's in between. Tonight she's here to talk about being an invisible victim of domestic violence. So I really just want us, whether we've got experience with this, whether we've traveled in these shoes or not, like I really want all of us to open up our hearts and our ears to hear what she has to say, because I believe that she really has some wisdom to impart on each and every one of us, okay? So can we get on our feet and give Caneeka a beloved welcome?
I'm excited to be here. A few times I wanted to call Tori and say, oh no, I don't think that I'm going to do this. The enemy was just coming at me. And it's not, there are so many years under this topic for me that you feel like, oh, I walked through that, it's done. But then the enemy comes back like, you really shouldn't be talking about this because what's your family going to think? And that in itself is just a constant. So, but I knew God, when she called, he had already told me to say yes. And then when we hung up, I was like, what you do? I cannot. Because I knew, and I had talked about this before, but I knew that God wanted me to go deeper than what I had gone before. And that was the part that I was struggling with. So I said, this is bigger than my feelings and my thoughts and whatever opinions my family might have. So I'm just thankful to be here. I did want to brag on my boys. I'm thankful that they released me. My husband we had a birthday party today, and I was like, oh, by the way, Friday I'm not going to be here, so you're on birthday party duty. And he was like, what? And then he's a strength and conditioning coach for our basketball team, so he had to take me to the basketball game. So I'm just thankful for my husband. We've been together, it'll be 10 years in March, which is just, and as I'm talking, you guys will understand why. I just never imagined I would even ever say 10 years for anybody. And my boys are 4 and 19 months, so they're pretty busy. I left my job last June to stay home with my baby, so that's a whole nother I worked for NASA, but NASA had nothing on the boss at the house. So I'm just thankful to be here and thankful for just them. I mean, they're my real testimony. So I'll get started. My mother and my biological father, they had me in their early 20s. I imagine that their relationship wasn't the best because they weren't together long. I remember thinking of my dad as a man who could do no wrong. I was very little, so that basically meant that he would call me and he would say that he loved me. and that would be about it. But soon the phone call stopped, and I started down this path of harboring rejection and abandonment from the first man who told me he loved me. My trust issues in men started there. She eventually remarried, and I remember not being excited about having a new dad. Basically, I already had one. I didn't feel like I needed a new one, so I wasn't really too fond of having someone else kind of step in and take that role. I'm not sure when the abuse began or how long it had been going on, but my memory of the fights go back to when I was either 4 or 5. I can still see the apartment where we lived, the hallway, the room that became my safe place in a world that quickly spiraled out of control into confusion and fear for me. I remember hearing screams and cries for help, the roaring voice of control, which reminded me of something very demonic. As if hearing someone you love get attacked for what felt like every night. One night I decided, very young, that I was going to go out there. That meant uncovering my ears, opening my door, and going to save my mother from this monster of a human. I remember the house being very dark, so it was difficult to navigate my way through. We had stairs, so I attempted to be as quiet as I could, going down them because I didn't know what would happen if he saw me or heard me. I got to the bottom of the stairs. I peeked around the corner, and that's the first time I saw him hit her. I'd never seen anyone get hit like that before. I felt like I was a witness to a crime, and I didn't really know what to do with what I saw. And that image is one that still replays. I mean, it's very vivid, even to this day. After that, whenever I would hear the abuse happening, I would just cry myself to sleep, and that became my way of being able to go to sleep for many years. I had so much anger, not just towards him, but the people in our building. We lived in an apartment, so I just knew that people could hear them because it was loud. One rule that my family, they live by, they kind of still live by to this day, is that family business stays in the family. They would randomly tell me when I would overhear some secrets that I shouldn't have heard, that you don't go around repeating anything that goes on in our family to anyone. And sometimes that meant not telling people in the family, especially if it was about them. So I consider that every family in the world had that rule, and that's why people didn't come and try to save her. And when the police would come by the house, he would tell them that it wasn't their business. But what people didn't think about or care about was how their business became my business when it caused me to be anxious and fearful and eventually paranoid, mistrusting, and depressed. My point number 1 is, it's not your fault what happens to someone else. According to the Crisis Services of North Alabama's website, it states no one is exactly sure how many children see or experience domestic violence in the United States. Estimates vary from 3 million to 10 million each year. Even if they themselves are not abused, watching the abuse of their mother inflicts great danger. Children who witness domestic violence often experience anxiety, fear, sleep disruption, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. And as I share my story, I experienced all of those. Because I had to learn at a young age that children are to be seen and not heard, even when someone is getting hurt. That because I was a child, I didn't have a place in grown folks' business. And my voice didn't matter because I was a child. I embarked on a life of silence. We put those things out there, especially towards children. If you guys ever meet my boys, they're the most opinionated, outspoken kids, and most days I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys have a lot to say. But overall, I'm so thankful because I didn't have that. Yeah. So I really cultivate that in them because I was silent for so long about so many different things. But here I was, a young girl, feeling abandoned by her biological father, living with an abusive man I was supposed to call daddy, and watching my mother have a black eye nurse to help by a family who labeled this another one of those family secrets. I quickly learned that marriage was not something that I wanted because, according to what I had seen, men were inconsiderate, or they were abusive and controlling. And if you had a baby by them, they would leave you and never come to visit or call or check on their children. So yeah, I decided at like 5 that I didn't want to get married. I didn't want to have children because there was no way that I wanted to be in a position where a man could have control over me, and also to have children who were walking around broken and confused, feeling the way that I felt. But I didn't know God then like I know him now. And I'm just thankful that his love graced me, even in those moments when I tried to declare against the promises he had for me. That's why my boys are the true testament of my story. Many people underestimate the impact witnessing domestic violence has on not just the emotional health of a young child, but also their physical development. Several studies have found that puberty may occur somewhat earlier among girls who have grown up in a more conflict-ridden family environment, or in households where a stepfather is present. Another text states that when children's safety and security are at risk, it is adapted for them to reproduce early. I was one of the girls a part of this statistic. I was 9 when I first started my cycle. I'd never been told anything about the changes of your body because back then, 9 was super young to even, they weren't even talking about sex education at 9. None of my friends at school had experienced it yet, so immediately I felt like an outcast, as if something was wrong with me. In college, I was a human development minor, and I came across this statistic in one of my books during my sophomore year. And it was, even though that was so many years to recover from having an adult man attack me, because remember, I'm only 12, attack me and demand, just because he was prideful and he felt disrespected and all of that, come at me in that manner. To make matters worse, when my mom came in and we were talking about what happened, the very first thing she told me was that I was disrespectful and ungrateful because he had done so much for us. And my jaw just probably slid off my face. I just couldn't believe that thought process, that was the only thing that she thought about or even cared about. And I remember telling her, I will live in a box on the street before I feel like I have to take what's given to me by someone who is going to be abusive. And I begged her to just send me away. At that time, I don't know what I know now about, the foster care system, but I was willing to go into the system. I would tell her all the time, please send me away. I would call family members like, can y'all please adopt me? And they would be like, we can't, But because I was starting to become a little bit vocal about wanting to leave, people were kind of knowing that something was going on. That moment with her would prepare me for the talks that I would later give on campus about why it takes a victim 7 times to leave her abuser. I could have stopped loving her, but the perspective that she had only made my heart break more and just love her more, because you can't give up on someone when you know that it's not you. You've been controlled to think this way. My 8th grade counselor was the first person I talked to about everything that had happened in my life up until that point. In the middle of the 8th grade, we moved again. So by this point, I was like, okay, I've been the new girl so many times, I don't even need friends. I'm just going to hang out in the counselor's office because that's where I need to be. And so I enjoyed going to school, but by this point, I was just in a daze. I was present where I was, but I wasn't in the moment. I wasn't really enjoying being 13 But she became the foundation for the establishment of my voice. She was very positive, open, listen, encouraging. She was a Christian. I was in church my entire life, but not in church, so I didn't really have that example of what, Christ looks like. And she was kind of that example for me, especially in school where you're not supposed to talk about Jesus, talk about God and Jesus, and we're going to pray, and, things are going to be all right. So she would always tell me, you need to speak, you need to talk about this because it's important. Eventually, I also told my aunt, because I would stay with her every summer, she started noticing my little chip on my shoulder and the fact that I didn't want to eat dinner with anyone. We didn't eat dinner in my house, and if we did, I always wanted to let everybody else eat, and I eat by myself. Because it was just awkward to just sit at the table with people knowing that, how many hours do we have left before this stops, So she approached me, and I told her what I had seen, what had been going on, what was still going on, and I just didn't trust anybody in the family. I felt like everyone knew, and no one did anything about it. And I understood that, women, we make our own choices, but I didn't feel like there was any type of intervention, like really people like, hey, no, you need to get help, this needs to stop. It was kind of like, hey, you're grown, you make your own decisions, we told you not to, so okay, go about, and I just feel like when you have children, you just need to fight harder, if not for the woman, for the kids. So I explained that to her, and she's always been super supportive, and I'm sure she's upset that she's not here, but I didn't want to tell a lot of my family that I was speaking tonight, because it's still, their thing is they moved on, but I still have stuff that I process even now at 31, so, but I'm thankful for them. By the time I got to high school, I was just kind of coasting off of stuff I had seen on TV. I didn't have a clear identity of who I was as a woman, a person, a human. I was just living and searching for anyone, any guy to fill the void of not having a dad and not seeing love, not knowing what love was, what it felt like, what it looked like. So I was a little fast in high school, and that happens to many girls, especially coming from abusive homes. Like, they get involved in sexual relationships, and that was my story. Many children, they also struggle in school, but I understood that if I did well in school, that would be my ticket out of the house. Like, I can graduate and leave. So I was very focused. I was rebellious, and I didn't want to do what they wanted me to do, but I did my schoolwork because graduation and leaving the house was where my focus was. I attended the best university in the land.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. And having dealt with feeling trapped in the house, man, I couldn't wait to get to Tuscaloosa. We had only been in Alabama for 2 years, so we moved in the middle of high school. So I definitely, by that point, I may have talked to 3 people at my new high school down here. And we moved from Boston, so it was a huge transition in itself. So I was really like, no, not doing the friend thing again. So I had no type of connection with people to make me feel like, oh, I need to stay at the house and be close to everyone. I was like, I'm ready to go to college. I just felt like this is my time. I knew that college was a place where you find yourself and you discover if you hadn't, like, who you are and what you want to do and all of those things. So I was just really excited to be myself, whatever that was, or discover her along the way, you know, to be happy. I didn't know what that looked like, what it felt like, and I don't know why I thought college was going to give it to me, but I believe that it did. And the biggest thing was I was happy to be able to be in a place where I could sleep and not have to listen to what was going on in the other room. I had gotten to a place where I couldn't sleep because I was listening for changes in tones and, oh wait, is someone getting too loud? Or even now, my husband, he's like, dude, we stay in an apartment now, and so the people above us, I'm like, are they about to fight? Is someone getting hurt? I'm just so, that's one of those things, like, I still deal with. So I just felt like I knew I was going to be in a dorm, and people would probably, you know, be loud, but it would be a happy loud because college is fun. And when I got to campus and saw my dorm, it was just so quiet and peaceful, and I was really excited. But on the ride to campus, my mom took me to school, and we were on Neck Island, which takes you into campus, and we hit this loop, and I burst into tears. And I was like, I don't want to go to college. I can't go to college, I'm not ready. I don't want to go. And then I'm thinking, I don't want to stay home either. But and I mean, I was having like a panic attack. Like my heart was racing, pounding in my throat. It was just bananas because I was so excited, but I don't know. And what I really kept thinking about was, I don't want to leave you, because I'd never been away from her, even though I tried to escape her. I didn't really want to be away from her, and I couldn't stop thinking about, if I leave, who's going to protect you? At that time, by then, things were like quiet and calm, and nothing crazy had happened, but I just couldn't stop thinking. I understood by that point, because I started learning more about domestic violence and victims and the mind of a victim and how it impacts women. I knew the cycle of abuse, and I understood that there was a honeymoon stage, and that doesn't last long. So I'm like, okay, you guys are, maybe you're in a honeymoon stage. How long is that going to last? And I couldn't tell her that I didn't want to go to college because I didn't want to leave her. Because my mom she's like this hardcore woman. She's not a hugger, but she's full of laughter, and she's like a no-nonsense. I mean, the one thing that she instilled in me was, you're going to go and do, I felt like she wanted me to do better, do more, you know, so she was really hard on me in that instance. So, of course, she looked at me, and she was like, let me tell you something. I drove your such and such all the way down here. You are going to college. We got all this stuff in this car. Oh, no, sister girl, you're going. And I'm thankful that she kept driving. Not that I would have been homeless, but I am happy because I did enjoy myself. But once I met my roommate, and I made my space in the dorm just feel like home. Not that home, but the home I've seen on TV, and the idea of what, you know, a peaceful space looks like. I did all that. I checked out, you know, what everyone looked like. Everyone seemed like they were getting along. There's no beef going on. I was like, I might actually get some sleep. And the first night that I tried to get some rest, like just go to bed, I started having flashbacks and night sweats and nightmares, and I couldn't stop hearing the screams and the cries for help and that roaring voice of control. And I just felt like I was being held captive. I was so upset because, you know, I'm away from that now. And it hadn't happened for a good amount of time, so I should be able to go to sleep without any issues. But what I didn't realize that sometimes it takes you being removed from an environment to start your healing process.
Yes, that's true.
You can't get that being where you are. So you have to move out of that share a space with a psychology major and not talk about your feelings. Like, so those nights where all that would start happening, and I would just crawl over to her side of the room and just cry and weep and just pour out. And I really felt that weight lifted, because other than my 8th grade counselor, so all these years had passed since I last talked to someone in such a passionate manner. I never talked to anyone like that. But to be able to have someone hold you while you weep, that's like a huge step in the healing process. And I don't think people realize how important that is and the difference it makes, especially in someone who feels so broken and confused and dejected. But she was absolutely a prime example of God's love on earth. I'm forever grateful that He placed her, just His strategy in my life. I mean, looking back, I'm just like, God, you kept me so much. I could have had a crazy roommate who's like, who could have acted any kind of way, but He gave me, strategically put certain people in my life. Point number 2, make sure you have a sound support system. I said before, like, I was in church my entire life, but I didn't really have a relationship with God until after I met my husband, which was going into my senior year of college. And it was hard for me to understand that God could make people like who were mean and abusive, and those same people could also be Christians and go to church and worship and talk about how we should help the poor and stuff like that, but they wouldn't help an abused woman, or at least help her children. I didn't understand that, and I rejected Christianity for a long time because of that concept. I'd never, other than like the 2 people that had showed me this is a biblical based type of love that you're projecting towards me. Other than that, I had never seen that in just everyday people. But there were a lot of people who said they were Christians. So I wasn't really interested in being a part of, the church and doing all that. I didn't understand that the peace that we can find from being in His presence, like I understand it now, or the love that we can feel from Him during worship, or the comfort that we can receive from His Word. My roommate, she was the one who suggested that I go to the psychology building and seek therapy. She knew that the grad students had to have so many hours of counseling before they graduated, and that it would only cost $5 per session, and they would put it on your student bill. So I was excited. I was like, yes, I can go get therapy. And even though most Black people don't get therapy, so that in itself, trying to explain that to my family, I was like, I'm not going to be able to tell them that. They're going to be like, you've gone to college and lost your mind. But I wasn't really sure about the student bill thing, because I was in college, I didn't have a job, I wasn't paying anybody's student bill, it went to my mother. So I knew that if I did this, I would have to tell her about everything that I knew, everything that I saw, everything that I heard, and open up that conversation. And I didn't really want to. But then my alternative was, did I want to continue having night sweats and flashbacks and not be able to sleep for the rest of my life? So I decided to go to therapy. My 3rd point, seek help. It seems so simple, but it's so hard. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration estimates that 23.8% of American women have experienced a diagnosable mental health disorder in the last year. Women are 2 times more likely than men to develop certain conditions such as depression and panic disorders. In my first session, we went through the entire tell me your life story. And I remember when it was over, the therapist was just sitting there with a blank look on her face. And she didn't say anything. And I was like, okay, lady, come on. Oh no, it's only $5. I don't have $10, so we can wrap this up. And once she finally started talking, the first thing that she told me was, you spent 1 hour telling me some very traumatic and painful stories, but you laughed through the entire session. My family is we're very boisterous. If you ever spend any holidays with us, there's going to be a lot of laughing, a lot of crying from laughing, and we joke about everything. So I had picked up on that mannerism that, okay, I'm going to talk about serious stuff. Oh, it has to be funny to kind of smooth it over, make it easier to swallow, you know? And that was my first lesson. Hearing her tell me that, complete stranger, because I had never noticed that I did that. That was my first lesson in what being vulnerable does not look like. That if I'm going to be open, and she told me this, you have to be open. Give yourself to your emotions, how you feel, and that's okay. Because again, you can't heal laughing your way through your pain. So she knew one session wasn't going to cut it. I thought that I could kind of roll through her chair and purge out my entire life, 18 years of pain, and just go about my merry way. I didn't understand strongholds and deliverance in the manner that I understand it now. So I spent my entire freshman year with her. I remember thinking about how often we are told not to go to therapy, and that our family business is our business mantra that gets passed down, because a lot of us are like, yes, you've heard that before. It gets passed down to every generation. But meanwhile, mental illness is plaguing our community. The family business stops being the business of the family when it prevents me from having an emotionally stable life. And that's what was happening. We need to stop feeding these elephants in the room as they continue to stampede over who we can become according to God's purpose for our life. One of the scriptures I learned during my time of healing in college was Philippians 3:12-14. And it has become the scripture that constantly reminds me where my focus should be. The Message version reads, I'm not saying that I have this all together, that I have it made, but I am well on my way, reaching out for Christ, who has so wondrously reached out for me. Friends, don't get me wrong. By no means do I sound myself an expert in all of this, but I press on towards the goal, where God is beckoning us onward to Jesus. I'm off and running, and I'm not turning back. Verse 14 was key for me, because so often I wanted to just give up in the process. I spent much of my childhood praying that God would let me die in my sleep. I didn't want it to be anything serious. I just didn't want to wake up to my life. So to come across that, the importance of pressing on towards where He's calling us to go, it was like, this is my life verse. I wanted to keep quiet. I wanted to make everyone else feel good by pretending that I didn't still have fears and anxieties at the sound of strangers arguing or seeing a woman get abused in a movie. I struggle with that. I struggle with stuff on TV. That's why I don't watch TV, because there's so much that comes at me that are still triggers for me, that I just stay away from it. But I continue to press on. I discovered God so deeply to keep my focus on Him and not on my feelings and what everyone else thought. I met my husband years after I had been able to process everything. By that point, I felt like, I had arrived. I went through therapy, and I was president of a gender justice organization on campus. So I spent a lot of time bringing awareness to campus about domestic violence, sexual assault, rape. Went to sororities, women about being cautious on campus and stuff like that, how to prevent date rape and things like that. So I just felt like, I had it going on. I knew this stuff. I was good. I would volunteer at women's shelters and work with the children in the shelters with their moms. And that was really like my way of pouring out and giving back. And then I was still writing poetry, so I would do all these poetry readings just to encourage myself in sharing and having a voice, because I had been silent for so long. I never imagined that I would write a book. So just especially to get in front of people and to share those deep, secretive things that I had written down, it was a big deal for me. So I was content with where I was and the amount of healing I had done. Everyone at the house seemed to be in a more peaceful place, and God's grace was really surrounding them and who they were as individuals and in their marriage. And I knew that only God could have changed a person in such a miraculous manner, and for that I was thankful. I was really just in a place where I was focused on me. Like, I have to focus on myself because I haven't been able to. I've been thinking about everyone else. By the time I met Scott, I still wasn't sure. Well, I was sure that I didn't want to get married, but I felt like God was telling me that I was supposed to be his wife. And I was, in this time period, I had insomnia, so I was up a lot at night, and I really feel like that was the time where God was just, hey, I exist, in those moments where I had to isolate myself. So, I really still wasn't sure, like, I don't know if this is really, for me to have that thought, it was unusual. So usually that's how I know it's supposed to be. Like, I would not have said this. But he confirmed the feeling I was having when he told me that God told him that I was the woman he was supposed to marry. Now, we have been dating for like a few months. I was like, okay, dude, I don't know about all that. But we dated for 9 months. We got engaged, and 5 months later we got married, and then my anxiety came back. I spent the first 2 to 3 years of our marriage stonewalling, trying to push him away, trying to get him to leave, or trying to leave myself. Not because he was abusive, not because he was a terrible human, not because I found out some crazy secret about him, but all those memories came back, and I was just afraid that one day he would be that guy. That it just hadn't happened yet. So I can't let him get too close. And I was excited about being with him because I knew that he was a godsend, but I was still so afraid of having a man in my life in that manner. He would always, I actually made him like every day for the first few years of our marriage tell me that he wouldn't leave me. And it finally got to a point where he would tell me before I would ask him, because I needed that affirmation. And then he would follow, and I'm never going to hurt you. And it was just hard for me to believe that. And here we are, like almost 10 years later, and it has just been, we can't believe it. It has flown by, and that's only God. So when I decided to write my first book and dedicate it to children who witness domestic violence, I knew that with that being out on the internet, that my family would see it, so I had to tell the entire family, hey, this is what's coming out, and it opened up this discussion for us, and of course, everyone was like, oh yeah, I remember that, it was so long ago, and I had to tell them, it was long ago for you, it was every day for me. So, he was one of the main people who told me, speak up, speak loud, you can do this, like, your story matters. And there are people who have been in that situation and they don't even know where to begin with being vocal about it, so be that voice for them. I example of Christ and his constant push to get me to discover God for myself is how I learned that not only do I have a voice on this earth, but I have a Father in heaven who has always heard my voice. Psalm 116 says, I love the Lord, for he heard my voice. Because he turned his ear to me, I will call on him as long as I live. Verse 6, the Lord protects the unwary. When I was brought low, he saved me. Verse 16, truly I am your servant, Lord, your faithful servant. You have freed me from my chains. Point number 4, your voice matters. Because he hears you. He gave it to you, so use it. I'm getting ready to close. The theme for our women's conference back in September was She is Brave. I was so pumped because I left my job in general, so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm brave. Honestly, that's what they said. I was like, God's gonna show up because this is my year, you know? And sometimes we just think of God on such a basic level that we forget how grand he is and how amazing, like just how much he encompasses, you know? So here I was keeping him in this box, how I thought I was gonna meet him, and instead he showed me something more powerful, that this is the underlying theme of everything that I talked about. One of the ministers at the conference talked about things she witnessed as a child, witnessed domestic violence in her home, and being abused, and people talking down to her, and things like that. And this is the verse that she shared. How precious it is, Lord, to realize that you are thinking about me constantly. I can't even count how many times a day your thoughts turn toward me, because they would outnumber the grains of sand. Psalm 139, 17-18. Matthew Henry has a commentary that says this: God's counsels concerning us and our welfare have been one, precious to admiration, how precious it is. They are deep in themselves, such as cannot be fathomed and comprehended. They are dear to us. We must think of them with a great deal of reverence, and yet with pleasure and thankfulness. We cannot conceive how many God's kind counsels have been concerning us, how many good turns he has done for us, and what variety of mercies we have received from him. If we could count them, think about this, a grain of sand, not a beach, it's one. We could count one. The heads of one, more specifically the particulars of that one grain of sand, as one thought, that one thought outnumber every grain of sand, his thoughts of us. And every thought that he has about us is still so great and considerable. I had never thought about someone thinking about me witnessing domestic violence, because no one had. Does that make sense? So, yes, last June, I had a revelation that you've been thinking of me then, now, everywhere in between, and what you kept me from. You've already thought about it. It's so grand that I wouldn't even understand it. Number 5, your relationship with God is huge. He wants to be with you. He's thinking about you. You're not just I always thought I never thought about God. But if I would have thought about God, I definitely thought process.
You want to do it? Go ahead.
I spent my entire life searching for a father who could